Welcome back to the Unlockable Podcast and happy Halloween. You already know it's time for the Halloween special of our podcast. This time we've prepared a pretty sweet topic, one where you're going to be learning a lot. Today we're talking about unreleased horror games. Hannah and I have compiled a list of 10 games that would have shaken you to the core with their spookiness had they actually seen the light of day. Let's go ahead and get right into it. If you like the show, please give us a positive rating wherever you're listening to this. And hey, I guess Spotify supports video podcasts now, so you should be able to see the video version of our podcasts starting with this episode, if that's something you're interested in. All right, that's all. Let's go. Welcome back to the Unlockable Podcast. My name is Christian, and joining me as always is the Game Girl Advanced SP herself, Hannah.
Hello.
What's going on, Hannah?
Nothing much, man. Just chilling. The weather outside is so nice. It's finally not 1,000
nice
degrees
here, too.
outside.
Heck yeah.
Starting to feel actually like fall.
And happy Halloween on that note, because today, recording on October 30th, and by the time this releases, it'll be Halloween.
Yes, happy Halloween.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys now, you might hear some coughing, and I'm going to try to point it away from the microphone because I'm getting over a little cold action. Yeah, talking is definitely going to bring on a little bit of coughing, but
Oh, man.
sorry in advance.
You're going to make my editing so much harder.
All right, so what's been going on in the world of, well, let's talk about the world of Hannah. What have you been doing lately?
What have I been doing lately? Well, you'll be pleased to know that I started and finished my very first Luigi's Mansion game.
You finished it?
I finished it, yeah.
You waited to tell me until we got to the podcast?
Sure did. Aren't you surprised? Aren't you glad I waited?
That's pretty awesome. Let's talk about Luigi's Mansion 3.
So, to be honest, when I first started it, I was not all that into it. Because it wasn't fun or didn't look good. It looks great, but I didn't necessarily fall in love with just like exploring a mansion. But like as I played it, I realized why people enjoy it so much, and it's not like it's a super like high impact like action game. It's like a slow, methodical like it's like exploration. And I didn't get that when I first started playing it, but as I played it and I put it down, I was like, you know what, really be fun right now if I played some Luigi's Mansion. So actually, by the end, I really, really enjoyed it. Except that one, and I know you know what I'm talking about, that one the sewer level. That was so difficult. They did not need to make it that difficult.
I wonder if that's a common complaint about that game, because that part sucked so bad.
It was awful. The first part that got me was trying to get away from the freaking ghost sharks, because you have to, like, use the, what is it called? The poltergeist to, like, suck your way forward or like blow yourself backwards, and I like could not for the life of me get around the stupid buoy, past the sharks, to the other, like past the little gate that you have to lift up. That was so awful. And then that boss fight took me forever too, because of the same thing. The same mechanics. I kept hitting the spikes, or he kept hitting me. I couldn't get out of the way fast enough. It was a nightmare. It was a disaster. I hated it. But everything else was good.
And you had to go back there, right?
Yeah, you had to go back there again. The second time wasn't as bad.
Yeah.
But that first time, I texted you and I was like, dude, I'm so frustrated. I think I'm just going to put the game down for a while. And I put it down for like a week. And then I was like, you know what? I can do this. It was really fun before that. Oh, and then the other thing that really bothered me was the freaking polter kitty. That was a pain in the butt.
That's where you had to keep going back to the other floors?
Yeah, and pulling its tail and waiting for it to jump on you, blah, 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 blah. That one I also didn't enjoy, but the sewer level was way worse. All in all, though, I enjoyed it. And I would like to go back and play the first two.
Heck yeah. See, I've been sitting here thinking that Hannah's never going back to Luigi's Mansion. She's never going to finish 3.
I thought about it, believe me.
Game.
I thought about it long and hard.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, that's all that I've been playing. I mean, that's pretty much taken up most of my time. What about you?
I've been playing a very special game that you might have seen on the thumbnail of this video called Metroid Dread.
No way, what's that about?
I got Metroid Dread, the special edition.
You splurged.
And it is just beautiful. Yeah, I did. Beat that game since the last podcast and loved every minute of it. It was epic as heck. I'm not going to spoil anything for you because I know you're going to play it.
Yep, I am.
And not going to spoil it for the audience, but really love that game. And it makes me want to go play the other ones just to see like how I can rank the 5 of them. Right now, like right fresh off the heels of Metroid Dread, I feel like that's the best 2D Metroid I've ever played. But I don't know if it's just like me being so excited about this. I don't know. We'll see.
How many hours you put into
really
it?
Really great. I put about 10 hours. 8 to 10, something like that.
Is that normal for 2D Metroid games?
I don't know the answer to that. It's been years since I've played the other ones, so I don't remember.
10 hours, though. I mean, you must be pretty good. Like, I feel like it's going to take me a gajillion hours because I am not very good at 2D platformers, but that's like your thing.
Had my fair share of game overs. The Emmys are terrifying. You're going to get scared as heck.
No.
It was a good time. I also played in the vein of the Halloween spirit. I played Castlevania Rondo of Blood, which I've been playing on and off the last couple months. I got a little further in that recently. And the only other thing that I could think of when I was taking these notes is I beat Halo 3 ODST with my friend Brendan, and that was another one to check off before the release of Halo Infinite this year. First time playing that one, though, actually. It was definitely different from the rest of the Halos. Not a huge fan of it. It was okay. That's my review.
You're selling it. I want to play it so bad now.
But very, very excited because next month, actually like 2.5 weeks, I will be playing on my Xbox Series X the Halo edition. I freaking pre-ordered it a while ago, and I'm stupid excited about it.
I didn't know you got that one.
Yes, ma'am.
Cool.
That's how you splurge right there.
It's
not easy to get any Xbox, and I freaking got the Series X Halo edition.
I was just about to say,
happy.
but that was a freaking nightmare.
Yeah. Same place that I was able to get Metroid Dread Special Edition, though. It was GameStop's website.
Well, that's nice. That's surprising.
It's awesome, and I don't like pre-ordering at GameStop because you have to wait for them to ship it. So, like, Metroid Dread came out, and I'm waiting like 2 days before I can get it, and everybody else is like, oh, this game's awesome. And I'm like, screw y'all.
Oh, well, how do you think I feel?
Yeah, what happened with you?
So I think we were recording when the pre-orders went up, but you know how stuff like that it sells out so quickly, and you have to like be on it. And I'm pretty sure we missed Amazon and Best Buy, and I somehow managed to get it through Target. And of course, I didn't look at the address of where it was going to be sent to, and it was going to be sent to my parents' address, and I didn't realize that until they're like, "Hey, it's shipped," and I'm like, "Oh, cool, let's track my package." And it's like, "Oh, it's down South Florida." I'm like, "No, what an idiot!" And of course, it had already shipped, so I couldn't change it. And I don't see my parents that often, so I just now got it, like on Monday. So
man,
I know I was like, "Oh man!" And same thing with the Amiibo. I got the collector's edition and the Amiibo, and of course, I just now got them. So I will hopefully be playing it tomorrow or later today.
Sweet. Looking forward to... Yeah, you're going to be scared as heck. I can't wait to hear you tell me how scared you are.
No, I got to play it during the day with the lights on.
So what are you doing for your birthday? I know that's about to come up.
It is. I'm doing nothing. I think my birthday's on a Monday, so I will be taking a test or a quiz or any other homework. I don't really have any plans at all. Nice. It's not exciting, Once you turn, after 21, everything's just kind of downhill. She's like, nah, it's just another year. Just another day, You
make yourself sound so old.
I am old. I'm very old compared to the demographic here.
All right, sounds like you bought Metroid Dread. Have you bought anything else?
Absolutely not. No.
All right. Just a plain old regular podcast here.
Yep. What about you? Please lay it on me.
All right. I bought the Metroid Dread Special Edition. I bought really killing it with the GameCube game purchases right now. I've been getting some good bundle deals. Shout out to Retro Game Trader on Instagram. He sold me Alien Hominid, among other things, recently. That's a heavy one crossed off. I got Disney's Hide and Sneak, which is a Capcom published game. There are so many weird Disney games on the GameCube, and none of them have the same publisher, it seems like. Like, there's Konami published ones. There's all kinds of different Disney games. Like, they were just throwing their license around in the early 2000s.
Not anymore, though. They hold that
No.
close to home now.
So yeah, lots of GameCube games. I won't go through them all, but those are the two big ones. Mario vs. Donkey Kong, the original one on the Game Boy Advance. I got that one complete in box. And I have to shout out my guy Vinny, who I've mentioned before in videos and stuff, but he randomly just sent me some Mario vs. Donkey Kong clings that you would stick in the mirror, or not the mirror, the windows of like game stores. They've never been peeled. These are brand new. The store that they were sold to or whatever never used them, and they're freaking awesome.
You're talking about like giant stickers?
They're not that big.
That's pretty
like
neat.
the size of both of my hands or something. But yeah, it's like the little mini Marios marching and Donkey Kong holding a barrel. They're pretty freaking awesome.
That's cool. Are you gonna display them?
Yeah, I was talking to him about how to display them, and he said that he got some for himself as well, some Kirby ones, and he's going to peel them and put them on the inside of a frame because they're kind of reversed, the peel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the best way to display them.
That's interesting. Huh, very cool.
Very cool little piece of history there.
That is really neat.
And then just this morning, I went garage sailing, which I don't usually do, but I decided to go, and I got a couple games. Baroque is an Atlas-published Wii title that I have definitely seen on social media before, but I don't know anything about it. It's like a horror type of game, horror RPG-looking game, so that's cool for the month of October. And then I got the Halo Anniversary Edition on Xbox 360. It's the cool HD remake, it's got a slipcover, super fancy looking, cool game. Yeah, those were both from a yard sale today.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
All right. Out of the world of video games of Christian and Hannah, let's get into the world of news.
All right. So since the last podcast, I think we talked about the last Nintendo Direct on the last one, but since then, the expansion pack of Nintendo Switch Online has released, and oh boy, did it blow up on the internet for good and bad reasons, but mostly bad. So, if you didn't know, the expansion pack includes Nintendo 64 and Sega Genesis games. Obviously not the whole library, it's very select. The regular upgrade from the normal $20 in the family pack, the normal one, will cost you $50, and the family pack is $80. So if you have, 7 friends I think you can split it up with, or 8 friends, that's not terrible. Or I guess maybe it's 10 friends, I don't know. Not terrible. And so initially the Nintendo 64 games that are included are Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, Star Fox 64, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Mario Tennis, Dr. Mario 64, Sin and Punishment, and Win Back Covert Operations, which I've never heard of.
It just wasn't released here.
Yeah. And then for the Sega Genesis, it's Castlevania Bloodlines, Contra Hard Corps.
Hardcore
yeah,
is how you pronounce that word.
Hardcore. Dr. Robotnik, Mean Bean Machine, Echo the Dolphin, Golden Axe, Gunstar Heroes, Musha, or Musha, Phantasy Star 4, Restar, Shining Force, Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, not one, but two. Streets of Rage 2 and Strider.
Killer lineups across both, honestly. Those are some really solid Genesis games. How are we feeling about the price?
I think the initial value for $50 a year is there. I mean, look at all those amazing games that you're getting. But the only thing that bothers me is, the longevity of this. Like, sure, okay, $50 for, you know what I'm saying? Like, $50 for 1 year, fine, right? Okay, $50 for 2 years. So that'd be $100. It's like, okay, that's less value there for me. Every year, if they don't, like, release enough things to keep it, like, substantial, I don't know, it feels like a waste. Because I own a lot of these games anyway. I just don't own them on the Switch. Yeah. And I don't know. And then, what do you think?
I think $50 for 1 year is not a lot. I think that for me personally, I'm not that interested. I think that I have a lot of these games as well. I think a lot of people have N64 still. It's not like NES and Super Nintendo. A lot of those games are not in people's hands, I guess. I feel like a lot more people have N64 is what I'm trying to say. And I don't know. No one cares about Genesis. Like, I love Genesis, but no one else does. No one's going to go play those games, and it's hard to justify that $50.
Yeah, and I even bought the Nintendo 64 online controller.
Oh, cool.
And I actually got one. The pre-orders were actually kind of hard to get, but I think they're restocking them significantly now. But I was like, wait, I'm like, I don't know if I really want to buy this right now. Like, to me, it doesn't have that much value. Because I own all the other games, and I'm not a Sega Genesis person. I'm not a Sega person. I think we all know that. So I probably won't ever pick up these games. One weird thing, though, is I always thought, I don't know, for some reason I had the idea that they would give us 2 separate packages. Like, if you wanted just Nintendo 64 games, you'd get those. You know what I'm saying? And, like, just Sega Genesis games. Because it feels like I'm paying for stuff that I don't care about. And that was a lot of people's arguments that they brought up. I was like, yeah, I guess I get that. You know what I'm saying?
Huh.
What do you think?
I hadn't thought of that previously. I mean, it would be nice, but I can't see them ever doing that.
Like, I'm paying Nintendo for Nintendo games. I don't want to pay Nintendo for Sega games. I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. But they have... Good.
I think I was about to say what you were going to say, but they have problems.
Yeah.
The problems with the N64 games have been rampant, apparently.
Yeah, so the reported problems, which are not necessarily true, like, take this with a grain of salt. Supposedly there's some input lag, but I've watched some YouTube videos and stuff that's saying that that's not a thing, like, they're not noticing that at all. And that maybe just the games being online on such a new system made you realize how much input lag there was on the original Nintendo 64. So I don't know, that one's kind of up in the air. The next thing is there's missing effects like the fog in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. For whatever reason...
Yeah, I saw that.
When you're facing Shadow Link, there's like... You're on like a little island and it's surrounded by water. And it's supposedly there's supposed to be like a fog effect there, but like... Unless you're a die-hard fan... I didn't notice that, and I looked at the pictures. I was like, what's the difference? But there's no fog, and the water looks a little bit different. But none of these things make the games unplayable at all.
Right.
It's just like minor cosmetic things, which I know kind of sucks because it's Nintendo, and they should have the quality. These are their games. They should know how to emulate them. But, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of torn on that,
It's not... Yeah, I understand. I mean, it's really not a big deal because I'm not one of those people that cares a whole lot. Like, I could play through any single one of those games right now and not notice that I was, like, missing some fog or something. And, I mean, the input lag, that could be an issue if it actually is an issue. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not going to be picking it up, but... Like, originally I was excited. I thought it was just going to be part of the $20. I didn't know. No one knew that we were going to have to pay extra, but I was excited to play Majora's Mask. My cousin just left to go live in a different state for a few months, and him and I were like super pumped. We were like, all right, we're going to play Majora's Mask over the Nintendo Switch online service. It's going to be great. And I don't see both of us paying $50 each to play that game. I don't know. Like, why isn't there a monthly option?
Yeah, there's no monthly option. I mean, you could do the family pack and only pay $40.
How does that work?
So a lot of people do this. It's family sharing, so you can have up to like 10 Switches, or I can't remember the exact number. So you just split it up. So you just send money to whoever's account it's under.
Okay, I gotcha.
But yeah, you mentioned Majora's Mask, so there are other games coming to the system that are already confirmed. They haven't given us a date yet. Two of which include Majora's Mask and Paper Mario, which I am super excited about because I love that game and I'd love to be able to play it on my Switch. Because I mean, let's be honest, I only have a flat screen TV, and Nintendo 64 games and lower generations look awful. So I'm super glad it's actually can be played on a flat screen TV.
Yeah.
Oh, and then another thing I wanted to bring up is Nintendo Switch expansion pack also comes with Animal Crossing DLC, which is weird. So it's as long as you pay for the service, you can keep the DLC, but once you stop, you no longer have access to parts of the DLC. I don't know exactly the specifics because I don't know the game, which is weird because the DLC, I think they said the DLC is only like $20 or $30 or something. So you'd be paying continuously for that $50 a year for that DLC, or just buy it outright. Isn't that weird?
It's like, Nintendo, why can't you just get it, right? I mean, it's just like everyone else has this kind of thing so normalized, and like that this would never happen under Sony or Xbox, and it's just very strange the way that they're doing it. I think that the Animal Crossing DLC is $24.99, and they announced some really awesome things for that DLC, but some of the things that were announced were like really what am I trying to say? They're gameplay mechanics. Like, there are new things in this game that should have been in there originally, just that speed up your processes and make things easier. And I'm pretty sure that they are unlocked with the DLC. So that means if you're not, like, you could lose some functionality to this game. And I'm only explaining it like this because I know you haven't played it. Mm-hmm. So I'm being really broad. But, like, there's some functionality things that could just be lost because you're not paying $50 a year. It's very strange the way they're handling it.
Yeah, and then I also had the other thought, like, okay, if they made all DLC available if you pay this $50 a month, then I might think people would be into it. You know what I'm saying? Like the Hyrule Warriors DLC or any DLC that comes like for Mario or Zelda games. I think people would be more enticed by it. But I don't know. They should have been like, okay, here's the Animal Crossing DLC and then possibly more in the future. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, you still have to keep up the $50 to pay it, but I feel like if there's more added, it might be a little more worth it. But yeah, I really don't know. I don't know how to get in the heads of Nintendo. I think everyone tries and we don't understand.
On the other hand, this kind of puts a nail in the coffin for an N64 Mini.
Yeah. You didn't have to say it, but you went there. Thanks. I'm going to be sad the entire podcast. Thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Let's just leave it at that. Okay, speaking of Nintendo Switch Online, though, and Nintendo 64 games, so GoldenEye and N64, for the N64, is no longer banned in Germany. So...
Isn't that interesting?
So it's sparking the debate that maybe GoldenEye will be coming to NSO at some point, because they would want it to be available in all regions. Isn't that
Usually
cool?
There's like licensing issues with things being brought to classic systems or whatever to digital marketplaces, but I feel like this game is an exception because it's just so iconic.
And GoldenEye 64 is like prime example of when licensing and stuff just gets all tangled up and is awful. I mean, they literally could have just, I mean, it didn't have to be 007. They could have slapped, I don't know, Agent Blue on there and it, you know? And it would still be the same game. But yeah, that's interesting. So I'd like to see the game. I think everyone would. Especially online. That would be awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Next, Nintendo is closing its Redwood City and Toronto offices, which kind of sucks.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Mm-hmm. So Redwood City is obviously in California and Toronto is in Canada, which, to be honest, I didn't know that there were offices there, but it's kind of sad that they're closing down. Yeah, I don't know why. I guess the pandemic really messed some things up. Next.
Isn't Redwood Washington? Oh, what? It's something with an R,
right? No, it's
right?
Redmond?
Oh, wow.
Redwood, sick. You redwoods, man. Those giant-ass trees. That's California.
Right, yeah. Interesting.
It is. And then next, Pikmin Bloom, which is the latest collaboration with Niantic, the people that make Pokemon Go, and Nintendo just launched. Like 2 days ago, 3 days ago. I downloaded it. I'm sure you did not.
I didn't know it was out already.
Yep, it was out. Well, it was so weird. They announced the release on Monday, and then we all went to go on Twitter, and then we all went to go download it, and it's like, not available in your region yet. It's like, what? Why would you do that? It was available in Singapore and somewhere else, and then it wasn't available until like Wednesday in the US or Tuesday. It's like, why would you? Why? Anyway, I downloaded
so
it.
It's better than Pokemon Go?
No, God, no. It's instead of like counting the distance you walk, like kilometers, it counts your steps. And instead of like catching instead of catching Pokemon like you would, you hatch the Pikmin and you can plant flowers and feed them nectar, so you get like the petals to plant more flowers. It's more like interactive, like you can see the flowers that other people have planted in your environment, which I think is super cool.
Huh.
Oh Lord. Do you hear Marbles waking up?
No.
Oh man, I'm sure the audience can. In fact, I know they can. I can see her meow on my screen. That is her waking up from a nap. Anyway, it's fun. I'm not a huge Pikmin fan, but it's interesting that it counts the steps, because you can literally just shake your phone and it'd be like, oh yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steps. So that's interesting.
Wow.
Let's see what else. There are 2 Lara Croft games coming to the Switch, which I thought was interesting. I didn't realize that these were a thing. Every time I think of like Tomb Raider or like Lara Croft, I think of Tomb Raider, which is like those epic, like their action games where she's like jumping off of cliffs and stuff. Yeah, these aren't those.
I'm sure the Switch could handle those too, though.
They could. I mean, the PS3 could, right?
Oh yeah, the first one came out on PS3.
So they would be Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light and Lara Croft and the Temple of
Osiris. I'll help you out there.
Osiris. I've never played those, but they're like isometric shooters, instead of like adventure games. They looked okay. I mean, the graphics look pretty great. And then last but not least, we have PAX South is canceled for the foreseeable future, which sucks. It always sucks when conventions are canceled. Obviously, a lot of things were canceled in the last year, and they said it's due to lack of attendance and the effects of the pandemic. So that kind of sucks. That's in your neck of the woods, too. That's Texas, isn't it?
I have been to that. Yeah, I think it was Austin or San Antonio, but that's pretty rough to hear.
Oh, it's very sad.
It's not what we need right now in the world.
No, I concur. That's all I got for the news. This is a pretty quiet month. Unless I'm missing something really big, but I don't think I am.
As far as Pikmin goes, I don't think I can take on another Pokemon Go sized commitment in my life.
I agree. I was playing it and it's like, oh boy, I could get really lost in this game, but like I'm already doing that with Pokemon Go.
Sounds interesting though. I'm surprised that I haven't heard of it. I guess I've been busy the last few days or something.
I know. Where were you when they jumped the gun on the announcement?
All right, Hannah, I think it's time to get into the topic at hand. I just saw your little H pop up on the notes on Google Docs.
I'm prepared.
All right, Hannah, so what are we talking about today?
So we are talking about canceled horror games, which everyone knows is my favorite genre of games.
Woo.
So this episode required a whole bunch of research. And so a lot of this info is coming mostly from Unseen64 and Lost Media Wiki, and some other websites thrown in there. And what we noticed while researching these, or at least I noticed this, I don't know, you didn't do a lot of research, did you?
Oh my gosh.
There's some inconsistencies. They're small, minor, so obviously it's not going to change like the overall picture, but there's just some things that were different from website to website. I don't know how that happens. Obviously, we can't confirm those. I'm not going to call a developer and ask what the real story is. But yeah, everything else is factual.
Yes, so biggest websites we used were Unseen64 and the Lost Media Wiki. Definitely had some help from other websites as well. Mostly those like fandom websites. Those tend to have a lot of information, but yeah, so don't come at our throats because you don't even know the truth, probably, because you're not a developer of the game. But please feel free to comment with anything that you might know about these games or whatever. Let us know what we get right and wrong. Why not?
Yep, exactly. You know what we know.
All right, so let's get into the first game. This is a pretty interesting one, and I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay, so our first one on the list is Colt County. So this was originally going to be developed for the Nintendo 3DS, and then later, I suppose, if it did well, which it didn't, it would go on to later consoles. So this is a psychological horror game and developed by Renegade Kid around 2013. Was originally announced. The game was announced for the 3DS at PAX 2013, and there are even pictures of promotional banners. So obviously if you go to a convention, there's like banners all over the place. Obviously they want you to buy their game. And there were 3 posters lined up. There's a screenshot or a picture of this. It's Mutant Mudds, ATV Wild Ride 3D, and then Colt County in the middle, all developed by Renegade Kid. They had promotional posters for it. And then, like I said, the game was also planned for later release on the PS4, the PS3, the PS Vita, the Wii U, PC, and Xbox One, so it was going everywhere. But that campaign was ultimately unsuccessful on Kickstarter. The developer's plan was to create an episodic horror adventure similar. It's like The Walking Dead meets Silent Hill 2 from the first-person perspective. The team behind this game is known for cult classic Nintendo horror games on the DS, such as Dementium, The Ward, and The Moon. I've never heard of those games. Have you?
Yeah, the Moon game is pretty popular. And Dementium, I think that's a whole series.
I think
like if there was a canceled Dementium game, we probably could have had it in this video.
I think there's a first one and a second one. I don't know if they went past that.
Okay.
And unfortunately, for whatever reason, their games never sold particularly well, even though they looked really good and they rated pretty well. Like, I know there was a whole thing with Mutant Mudds and limited run games. But yeah, they didn't do super well.
Yeah, so directly from the Kickstarter campaign, clear that throat a little bit, we have Colt County is an all-new first-person survival horror game that blends the episodic storytelling of The Walking Dead with the classic tension-filled exploration and action of Silent Hill and Resident Evil, presenting an opportunity for fans to help a veteran team produce a new experience that is fresh, exciting, and scary. It's interesting that they took 3 licenses and put it in their Kickstarter campaign like that.
Are you allowed to do that?
Right.
Actually, it's Kickstarter. Nobody cares.
And they call themselves a veteran team. Nice. Rebirth of the survival horror FPS genre, crafted with fan input. Story-driven gameplay featuring memorable character interactions. Small West Texas town, filled with tension, mystery, and scares. Vulnerable and personalized melee and firearm combat.
Oh, you say melee? Oh, no. Oh, no.
Varied cast of creepy enemy encounters, and devious boss battles. Alright, you assume the role of Gavin Mellick, whose mother has fallen deathly ill. Unable to reach your older sister Alyssa by phone, you drive the 6 hours across Texas to visit her in person and share the sad news. Nowhere in Texas is 6 hours. I mean, drive across Texas, that's like 15 hours? I don't know.
What if it's the very tip? It is the south, right? Oh, no, it's west. Oh, man, that doesn't work.
West Texas. You return to the small town where you spent your summer as a child with Alyssa at your late aunt's house. This is a particularly savage dust storm. Oh, I'm sorry. There is a particularly savage dust storm rolling in when you arrive. Unable to locate your sister, you ask some of the locals for help. You quickly learn about their suspicions of a cultish group that recently moved into town.
Ooh.
And the unexpected suicide of Father Pierce. The locals offer very little help finding your sister, and it isn't long before your search takes an unexpected dark turn, leading you down a road of no return.
Oh, bum, bum, bum.
My interest is so peaked, and I'm ready to play this
I
game.
know,
that didn't freaking
seriously.
come out.
I was researching this, like, oh my, why did this never come out?
You are alone. You are unarmed. You see strange people linger on the ledge. Okay, hang on. They put people in parentheses there, or in quotations. You see strange people linger on the edge of the dust storm who seem to be watching your every move, but as soon as you turn your head to face them, they disappear. Who are they? Where do they go? What do they want? As you explore deeper into the town, searching for any clues that might lead to your sister, you meet various town folk who offer their own anecdotes on what the quote-unquote people might be. Some claim they are just your imagination, and some say they are part of the new cultish group who recently moved into town. One person even goes as far as to name them Dust Devils.
Dun, dun, dun.
I feel like this is a freaking trailer right here. This is like a really well put together paragraph.
It is very in-depth.
Alright, the game did not get near enough financial support from Kickstarter, only raising $47,000 out of their $580,000 goal. So that sucks. It's possible that they shopped around for another publisher for the game, but were unsuccessful.
Yeah. See, if I would have known, I feel like I would have invested. You know?
Yeah, like looking back, it's like, oh, let me help them.
Yeah, well, it's too late now. But anyway, yeah, so unfortunately, the bad news continues. So Renegade Kid ultimately shut down after releasing remasters of Moon Chronicles and Dementium for the 3DS, which I also didn't know existed.
I didn't know that either.
Yep. It is still possible, honestly, all of these on the list and every cancel game everywhere, it's still possible to be released at some point. But nothing has been heard of the game since. But it's got to be somewhere. Things just don't disappear. And then, so after Renegade Kid shut down, one of their co-founders, Greg Hargrove, founded a new company called Infitismo. You see that?
Yeah.
And so I looked it up, and he actually died in September of 2018 from pancreatic cancer. And their website no longer exists. You can buy it on GoDaddy if you want. And their last tweet on their Twitter was October 31st of 2017, which ironically is 4 years from tomorrow.
4 years from the release of this podcast.
Yep. So that's really unfortunate. So, I mean, somebody's got to have it. Probably the other founder.
Yeah.
And so there are a few video clips of this game in existence. There's a 4-minute video clip commented by the actual developer of the game, and he goes over like what you see, what you're looking at, and he actually because he's using obviously like a developer's
build.
But yeah, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I was looking for. Build. He can like change the lighting, and you can see like the lighting go through the trees and the shadows like shine across the floor. It's really cool. And he says in this clip, he only shows you like one. It's only 4 minutes. So he shows you one very brief spot on the game, and he says it's at a very, very early stage. But that being said, it was like fully built. Like you're exploring this church, and there's like a graveyard in front, and there's trees. And all throughout the entire thing, there's like a big dust storm. Like I don't know if you've ever been in like when it's snowing outside, or like a blizzard, or like when the wind kicks up a whole bunch of dust or dirt. It's like that, but it's like intense. And obviously you read that plays a huge part into the story, which I guess we'll never figure out unless it's released. Why is the dust so important? He kept bringing it up. He's like, the dust is important. It plays a big part in the story.
Yeah.
And also, since it was on the 3DS, the 3D feature actually worked on it. And so it was hard to tell in the video, but he was explaining it, and he said, like, the dust storm, you could see it, like, you know, the 3D effect. It makes it look like it's 3D. Well, it looks like the dust storm is, like, being projected out. So it actually, like, makes you feel more immersed into the game, which I thought was so cool. And he said that the game was only about 4 hours long. It was supposed to be like a budget title. And the game leaves off on a cliffhanger because it's supposed to be like episodic. So it's supposed to like continue. So I assume they had a plan for the story and it's never going to come to fruition. Because the first one didn't release. The second one's certainly not going to release. And then he said, I don't know if this is substantialized or if this is actually real, but he said this was supposed to be the first-person shooter on the 3DS. I don't.
Wow,
yeah,
that's kind of important.
It is. That's what he said, but I couldn't find anything to back that up. But that was also in, 2013, so I'm sure there's another one released after that. But yeah, isn't that sad? We'll never get to see.
Yeah, it's really sad. Really sad way to kick off this podcast, honestly. But also super interesting. There's gonna be a lot of different scenarios into like what causes these games to be canceled, whether it's money or if things get closed down, whatever. But yeah, as far as like the status of where the code is for these games, that's always a big thing. Preservation is so important, and the guys over at the Video Game History Foundation are doing their best to preserve the history of video games, and it's more important than I think a lot of people realize, because even big companies like Nintendo have lost code for their games. I think Ocarina of Time, like I think the reason, well, I don't want to get into it to like left field over here because I don't really know a whole lot about it, but I think there's a lot of code out there that has been lost, and hopefully that doesn't happen for Colt County.
This is like the only, like I said, I hate horror films, I hate horror games, I hate anything that has to do with horror. But this is like the only one on the list where I think I would want to play it, and I probably could get through
Metroid
it
Dread.
because I want to know what happens. They were so descript on their story. It just sucks that we'll never see the ending.
Yep, and it makes you want to support the indie developer.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at our next game, Castlevania Resurrection. What is more Halloween-y than Castlevania?
And Resurrections.
So this was a title that was supposed to come out on the Sega Dreamcast. And anytime you hear about the Dreamcast, you always hear about how it didn't live very long, and that's probably a big cause to any game being canceled for this platform. It was just how poorly the console sold, how poorly it did, and how quickly it was killed off. But this actually would have been the 17th Castlevania game, which seems insane to me because it's only 2000 at the time of this game coming out. Oh, did I say March 2020?
I think you did.
Oh my gosh, March of 2000. That's funny. I think that's what it was. Now I don't have the notes pulled up, but I'm pretty sure it was canceled in March of 2000. Definitely not 2020.
I think, yeah, I remember you saying that.
Would have been the 17th Castlevania game and the third one in 3D. I think the first two would have to have been Symphony of the Night and one of the N64 games, I think. Symphony of the Night is 2D, so never mind.
You're just wrong games. Today.
Dang it. All right, so the story would have focused on Sonia and Victoria Belmont in 1666, right before the events of the original Castlevania game. Only a few of the people who have worked on this game have come forward to discuss its development. One of them is Greg Orduyan, the art director of the game. He says that a couple of the reasons that this game ended up being canceled was because of disagreements between Konami of Japan and America, as well as the death of the Dreamcast. This is interesting. Castlevania Curse of Darkness, which came out on PS2 and Xbox, was rumored to have used some of the environments from this game. And even more interesting, a beta copy of Curse of Darkness went up for sale for 3,000 euros around 2003, but has never reappeared.
Oh boy. What do you think? The developers bought it back?
Like, how cool would that be? I always wonder if like developers have any interest in like keeping prototypes secret or whatever. Like, I don't know. I think that would be so cool.
Well, I know that I would certainly keep a copy of whatever I worked on.
Heck yeah. I would put a lot of money up to get some of that back if I created that.
Oh, I wouldn't necessarily sell it. I think I'd keep it for myself, but there's no reason why I guess you
No, that's what I mean. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I'm not saying I would sell it. I'm saying if I saw someone else selling my prototype that I'd worked on, I'd be like, yeah, I absolutely need to get my money on that.
All right, so this is a quote from the environment artist of the game. Obviously, that's the person that works on like the trees and the mountains and the castles. So according to Jason Lee Elliott, the team of CV, Castlevania Resurrection, was the same of bottom of the ninth 99. And what is that?
It's a freaking baseball game.
What did you, when you looked it up, what were you expecting?
Dude, I was not in the headspace of baseball when I saw a Castlevania team working on something.
No, man.
But, yeah, I don't know what I was thinking.
That's so funny. I mean, I probably wouldn't have thought that at first either, but then I was like, okay, bottom of the ninth inning, 99, oh, the year. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I got it. Okay, so this is the quote. So Castlevania Resurrection was a game doomed from the start, in bold. When Konami first moved to San Francisco, did know that, this was one of the first projects started at the studio. I spent most of a year working on bottom of the ninth 99. And this game was still in the early stages of pre-production. When I switched over to work on Spawn, the studio let most of the team working on Castlevania. What? Oh yeah, the studio let go most of the team working on Castlevania and replaced it with Bot 9 team. Very interesting.
Bottom of the ninth.
Yeah, Bot 9. A year later, when I wrapped up Spawn and had taken a month-long vacation, I was brought onto the team, and there had been much more advancement. Okay, so we took a month off, and he's like, all right, I'll come back. The team itself had a lot of problems when I came on board. Most of the team had only ever worked on sports games, and so they had no idea how to make a 3D action platformer. The art team wasn't very cohesive and couldn't agree on a direction. The game had been in development for almost 2 years and had little to show. Personally, I discovered that my 3D skills had stagnated from lack of use, and I was struggling to hit the quality the others were achieving. I had been at the office almost every day, almost 3 years at this point, and was suffering from severe burnout, which didn't help. After only a few months on this team, I decided I had to quit. I wasn't having fun making games, and I missed Canada. In my resignation letter, I stated I would never work in games again. Just goes to show that young people in their 20s really don't know anything. A few months after leaving, the game was canceled and the entire studio was shut down.
Okay, a game doomed from the start, that is 100% accurate. Why, assuming this is true, were people from the sports genre working on this game?
I mean, yeah, do you know if the baseball game was 3D? Or if it was like like 2D.
It was 3D.
Oh, it was 3D? Okay, well, at least I know that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Castlevania was a decently selling game. Why wouldn't they give it to someone who is more capable of it, you know?
Yeah, at this point, they had only just begun to release like a couple of bad games, I guess, on the N64, but it's the 17th Castlevania game. The other 15 or whatever were killing it.
That's so weird. Did they think it was just going to be like a budget title, or I don't know.
Strange, man.
That's crappy as a developer. But we also have another quote from the director of the game. Greg Ordian is what you said, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, the art director of the game. And the director
Right.
of the game was Norio Takamoto. The CGI director was Jenny Ryu, or AKA Jenny Chang. And thanks to fans of the time, they discovered her digital portfolio and they put it on Wayback Machine. This is the Konami game project that was my introduction into the game industry. I met many talented artists there. We worked very hard and did great work to make the game. However, Dreamcast was going out of business. So finally, this wonderful game got canceled. It was so sad, but I know that these things happen in this industry. You could definitely tell that was translated.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Yeah, so wow. That sucks, though, to draw all this art. So there actually is a whole bunch of screenshots of this game.
Right.
I mean, there's a ton. Like, it looks, if I'm not mistaken, it literally looks like the game is, like, almost finished. But this is probably just, like, one actual look at the game. So what I think is really neat, besides the screenshots, there's, like, actual character, like, renderings. So there's, I don't know, some buff dude in armor with, like, some big battle axe weapon. There's also, like, 6 or 7 of a couple dancing in different dancing poses. They're, like, typical, like, ballet or, like, ballroom dancing.
Yeah.
And then there's also different shots of the castle, which I guess is the main area that you're in. They look really good. But I think the Dreamcast had pretty good graphics, though, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
And then besides that, there's actually, like, concept art. There's the, what's the 3-headed dog? Cerberus?
Cerberus,
yeah. There's a really, really nice picture of Cerberus. And then a Griffith, the one with the lion butt and the eagle head.
Oh, yeah.
And then Castlevania is known for, like, their really amazing character work, aren't they?
For sure.
There's also what looks like the Grim Reaper riding on the back of a horse. Some skeleton dude. Pixies or Valkyries. They're like the humanoid-looking bird with feather wings. You know what I'm talking about? Valkyries or Pixies.
You're doing really good with this, with these names. Like, did not remember Griffith.
Well, you know, the only reason I know all these is from Yu-Gi-Oh! Because they have a bunch of these kind of cards.
Yeah.
And then there's a knight on a horse, but the horse only has, like, his front part. It's called the knight on a zombie horse. And the rest is just, like, his skeleton. He only has his front legs, and the rest is skeleton. There's also a guy holding a hacksaw and a torch. And it looks like a big ogre guy with, like, a mask. And I think he's holding, like, a hacksaw, and there's a guy with a pickaxe. So, I mean, but they're really beautiful renditions of these things. So someone put a lot of, like, time into this. There's also a knight who has, what's the whip, the chain whip that's really classic in this series.
Don't know the name of it.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's like the whip. But yeah, I mean, so there was a lot of time spent on this. And then it just got canceled.
Tons of screenshots, tons of concept art, and there's even a full-on teaser trailer if you go over to Unseen64's YouTube. So yeah, definitely check that out. But the last thing I saw was a short article written about the game in Dreamcast magazine. So this thing was definitely, like, I don't know, it was pretty far along in development, no doubt about that. But it sounds like Jenny Chang was pretty saddened by the fact that this game wasn't able to come out.
I know. Could you imagine putting all that work into art? Because, I mean, that it takes a long time, especially how detailed some of these things are. And to 3D model them, I mean, let's be honest.
All this from the bottom of the 9th team.
Bottom of the 9th, 99.
All right, this next one is a 2-for-1. What do you have for us?
Okay, so this is Ghosts and Goblins 64 and Ghosts and Goblins 3D, which I got really confused about Ghosts and Goblins. I have never played any of the games. I know about it, but then there's also, what is the other one? Ghouls and Ghosts or Ghosts and Ghouls or whatever?
Ghouls and Ghosts.
I was like, oh, Lord. Anyway, so this is a canceled action game from Capcom for the Nintendo 64. In November of 1996, Capcom invited press to look at their upcoming games for the year, as one does, and Ghosts and Goblins was one of them. And then, for whatever reason, the game was just quietly canceled. No ROMs or code has surfaced of the game since. And according to Neil West, who was present at the event, he said you could tell the game was in early development and was heavily inspired by Super Mario 64, which had taken the jump from 2D to 3D. There are many theories about why the game never saw the light of day, which include the development team was not familiar with the 3D environment, or the introduction of the PS1 was introducing competition into the market. But we think that the main reason is the Nintendo 64 itself. So the console was, I would say, moderately successful looking back on it, but the console began to see disappointing sales in Japan, which is obviously their biggest market, and due to the lack of games, there weren't as many. And of course the limitations of the cartridge format of their games itself. So
I can only imagine what a 3D version of this game would look like. I mean, it sounds pretty interesting.
yeah.
Heavily inspired by Mario 64. So just for you and for the audience, the history of Ghosts and Goblins, they were very difficult 2D platformers, started back on the NES and the arcade, and honestly probably before the NES, or like, I'm not saying before, I'm saying probably on those old PCs is what I'm trying to say. Later on, back in or early into the PS2 era, they did release a couple of 3D hack and slash games titled, I should not have tried to remember it, Maximo. There's a couple of games from Ghost to Glory and something else, but they're on PS2 exclusively, and those are actually like, those are just in the universe of Ghosts and Goblins, but they're a completely different game, and main character and everything. So, yeah, I can only imagine that a 3D platformer version of Ghosts and Goblins would have looked way different than what Maximo is. And yeah, there's a new game on modern consoles that just came out, definitely on Switch, and I'm assuming on other platforms as well, but I think it's called Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection or something. Yeah. And Ghosts and Goblins 3D was never officially announced by Capcom, so Hannah talked about the PS1 game, but the Ghosts and Goblins 3D for the PlayStation was never actually announced by Capcom, and not a whole lot is known about the game. But just last year, in September of 2020, a former Capcom artist shared some concept art on Twitter before it was like removed super quickly. So I find that to be pretty interesting. Could be a scandal. I don't know.
Could be a scandal. I'm sure they bought that. Ugh, I'm sure that whoever posted that got so much trouble. Just kidding. They probably didn't find him.
All right, so that one was pretty short. The next one here is going to be Resident Evil, but I believe European name could be Japanese or could be both, but Biohazard 1.5. This was the internal name for Resident Evil 2, the prototype that was abandoned in 1997. This was going to be releasing on the PlayStation, the original PlayStation. It is said that it was canceled because the developers were just not satisfied with where it was going. They did not have high hopes for the game. They weren't a big fan of how it was looking, and they scrapped it. They started the game over from scratch. Obviously, they took a lot of stuff from this prototype and brought it into the final version of the game. And I'm not going to sit here and go through all the details of each character, but there were going to be two storylines, much like in the final version of the game. One for Leon and one for Elsa, who would actually become Claire Redfield in the final game. Most of the characters from the 1.5 prototype retained their personalities and backstories for the final release. I saw there was like this guy Mark, who's a supporting character for Leon, had like a much heavier plot line. Like he was gonna have way more to do with the game than he does in the final version. Just small changes like that. Yeah, I haven't played Resident Evil 2 myself, so I'm talking from outside here. But talk to us about the trailer that exists for this game.
So yeah,
prototype.
There is a trailer, and it's only about 2 minutes long. And honestly, the first 3 seconds or first 4 or 5 seconds, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like a zombie looking thing kind of mixed with like Hellraiser, like his face is all messed up, and then he turns his head to scare the crap out of me, and he looks directly at you. But yeah, it's basically just showing like tiny snippets of gameplay of basically you just shooting zombies. It's very reminiscent of GoldenEye 64, which is the only thing I can really compare it to. So that's really the only like shooter game I've played. But yeah, you're shooting shotguns and you're killing zombies and you're running away. There's also like a really funky looking like snake monster, but it looks like, even for the time, it looks like really early on in development. Like the characters don't have a lot of detail. The zombies are basically just like mannequins, like black mannequins. That sounded bad. Some mannequins that are dark. just like figures. But yeah, you're shooting zombies' heads off, and I mean, I have not played any Resident Evil games, especially not from this early of time, but I guess this is pretty standard for zombie shooting games.
Right, yeah.
And then, yeah, he talks about it a little bit, and you see, like, some concept art. So, clearly, they've thought this through. There was a thought there, but then it came to nothing.
So, yeah, from what I've seen of that trailer, and also from what I've read, it seems like this prototype was going to be a lot more gruesome and scarier than what we ended up seeing in the final cut of Resident Evil 2.
Oh, there is actually there's blood in this trailer as well. When you shoot the zombies,
okay.
Blood shoots out.
Yeah, I saw that.
R-rated,
saw a man's head fall off. So it seems like the prototype would be scarier and more gruesome. Zombies would continue to chase you with half of their bodies severed. Apparently, this is still possible in Resident Evil 2, but it's just harder to pull off. Requires a shotgun, whatever. I guess from what I read, it sounds like that would have been more common in this prototype release. The enemies would come at you with their heads blasted off, so I guess you don't see much of that in Resident Evil 2, the final cut. Crawling enemies that typically bite your ankles in the final release.
Dude, no.
They would climb up on top of you, and they would bite your neck. Wonderful.
Yeah, God.
Zombies could climb walls in this prototype and jump from ledges. So, I don't know. I don't know why they got rid of some of those features. It seems like horror is what you're supposed to be going for, but...
Give their audience freaking heart attacks, man. I know why.
Prototype featured more variety of zombies. There were black zombies, fat zombies, female zombies. And I say this as someone who hasn't played the final version. I'm assuming that these aren't present in the final release for whatever reason.
Fat zombies would have been a good one.
Yeah. And new weapons were set to appear. I saw a couple examples. The lead pipe melee weapon. And I saw some hand grenades in there as well. I guess, what's her name? Claire Redfield uses a grenade launcher that Leon doesn't use. And so the hand grenades were what he would have used in his storyline. I don't know. This is a man talking from the outside looking in. But that's all I got for Biohazard 1.5.
That sounds horrifying. Okay, so next one on the list is Berserta Silent Evil. Now,
bless you.
If you're thinking, wow, that title sounds so familiar. I also thought the same thing. I was like, okay, so it's like Silent Hill and like, Resident Evil. It's none of those, but it is heavily inspired by both of those games. So this game was initially planned to be released on the PS Vita and the Wii U. That's gotta hurt if you were planning on releasing games on those platforms because they built it awful. But obviously the game is canceled. This game was announced in 2015, and in 2017 was still planned to come out on the Wii U, but obviously it never did. And actually on the website Unseen64, which is where we got all this information, there is an update at the top of the page which says Edrox Interactive was still planning on releasing it on the Wii U as of early 2020. It's 2021, almost about to 2022, and nothing has been heard. And so I did a little more digging, and there's also still information about this game on Edrox Interactive's website. And the first thing on the website is a copyright 2019, so obviously they've updated it since then, meaning it might still be getting worked on, or it might release on modern consoles. But again, that's like a big maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to be the cool kid and release something on the Wii U in like 2023, that would be a big deal,
Yeah.
No one would care about playing it, but everyone would want to buy that.
Same thing with PS Vita. I mean, it's the same thing.
Oh yeah.
But ouch.
The game was the game was to be announced. It never actually had a release date, as Hannah mentioned, and Peggy 18. It was going to be rated M, or if you live in Europe, that's Peggy 18. So it was going to be a pretty scary game, probably. From their website, it says Berserta Silent Evil sets the stage inside a disheveled. Oh my gosh,
you got this.
Disheveled world.
Disheveled.
Disheveled. Let's go with that one.
Disheveled.
Disheveled. Have you heard that word before?
Yes.
All right, we're going to start this one over here. Berserta Silent
No
Evil.
giving it in.
Berserta Silent Evil sets the stage inside a disheveled world, softly lit by the moonlight, overrunning its foliage and blanketing corridors with darkness.
Wow, that's a lot of big words. I'm so sorry.
That's a man that took English class a few times right there. Berserta Silent Evil for Wii U is the story of Ash Lightheart drawn by mystical power of the city called Berserta. Ash was 15 years old, but one day he wakes up in a dark world as a 30-year-old man. You have to explore this world, slinking through a large, creepy, and seemingly empty building to find out what happened. The title will use extensively the Wii U gamepad's touchscreen for puzzle solving, unlocking doors, and other minigames and mechanism interactions. So when you said that it was coming to Wii U and PS Vita, I was thinking that maybe they were planning to use touchscreen, since both of those consoles had it, and sure enough.
Yep. So, yeah. The games that utilize the Wii U's gamepad, I think, are so much cooler than, like, just normal games that leave the gamepad blank, you know?
I agree.
So I think the Wii U definitely could have benefited from a game that actually used the gamepad. So there is about a 23-second video gameplay of this, but it really doesn't tell you that much. The characters literally just like jumping and like crouching around, and the room is really dark, so you can't really see anything. I don't know who filmed this and for what reason. The game is in third person and looks like you shoot like the monsters in the game, and it's also got like a, again, I'm gonna bring up this example again, but in GoldenEye 64, you know how like when you pause it comes up with like a screen and it's got like all that fun stuff on it. It's like you don't know, do you? Because you've never played it.
I don't know.
Oh, gosh. It's like a
Everyone else is listening and knows what you're talking about.
Okay, here's one that you'll know. So Iron Man, when he puts his like helmet on, he's got like all those things.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. And it's obviously a shooting game where you're shooting all the monsters. There are a bunch of screenshots though, and in those pictures, it's the Wii U version of the game, and it looks, if it is the Wii U version of the game, because it doesn't say like, you know, captured by Wii U, it looks really good. And there's actually a screenshot of the game with the cover of the game. Like, the game cover is like a poster, like, in-game. Which I thought was really cool. I mean, they already have, like, a cover art and all that stuff. That was super cool. There's also a really blurry picture. Like, you can tell that someone took it from, like, a phone. Of the startup menu on the actual Wii U gamepad. So it actually played. We know that. And then other than the synopsis on the developer's website, from the screenshots, I can gather that the game takes place in some abandoned, like, dystopian town that looks dark and scary as heck. I mean, even the cover art scared the crap out of me. And you explore what looks like, from the screenshots, there's, like, an abandoned castle. There's those morgues with, like, the body freezers, like every stereotypical freaking horror game has. It's got, like, the operating tables. And there's, of course, long, dark hallways, because what horror game would it be without long, dark hallways that you can't see, like, 2 feet in front of you? And it also looks like you can explore, like, the outside town itself. There are, like, down-country back roads and, like, lifeless street corners and dark alleys, so it's, like, a giant town, or multiple towns. There's also jail cells, and the monsters in the game look like a cross between, like, demon thingies from Doom and, like, your typical zombies. Like, they have...
Wonderful.
Right? They like that they don't light up red, but it kind of looks like they have, I don't know, like lava in their veins. It's very weird. And they're terrifying. And there's also like giant, of course, probably like they were trying to like make some mutated monster in a lab and it broke out. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like the stereotypical, like just really messed up animal monster thing. And there's also screenshots. It looks like it really heavily used the gamepad. Like, there's a whole bunch of tasks that you can do by touching the gamepad. There's, like, crossing wires or, like, fixing things. So it looks like it really was a cross between, like, horror and puzzle solving, which I think is really cool. But, yeah.
It does sound like a pretty awesome game. A lot of the things you were describing, really, like, I was playing a game called Little Nightmares 2 last night with some friends, and it's like, yeah, the long dark hallway, the freaking
morgue,
the morgue, like everything is like, yep, I saw that.
Just inherently creepy. But yeah, I would not play this game because it sounds terrifying. The screenshots look terrifying, but I would be interested to see like how the story turns out.
I saw the cover, and it's pretty crazy. It's pretty creepy.
It's creepy. There's like a face like in the background in the forest. It's terrifying. No, thank you.
All right, this next one, for some reason, felt like this game was like this series was way more popular than it is, but I don't think I know a single soul that's ever played a game from this series, and I feel like this series is hanging by a thread. It's called Alone in the Dark. Alone in the Dark 5 specifically is what we're talking about here today. It was a canceled game coming to the PS2 and Xbox. So a little background information, because we all need it here. History and genre. The first game released in 1992 for MS-DOS and several other computers, but the only home console that it came to was the freaking Panasonic 3DO. The games started to change in 2001 with Alone in the Dark 4. It wasn't actually 4. Internally it was known as Alone in the Dark 4, but it's called Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare, which released in 01. They said, I haven't played it obviously, but there was a lot of Resident Evil influence on this game and the games that came after it. The games have seen releases on PC, PlayStation, Dreamcast, Wii, 360, Sega Saturn, even Game Boy Color. So it's been all over the place.
And we've never heard of it, which is crazy.
Yeah, this series is about to turn 30 years old now, and I mean, I don't know, hanging by a thread. It was published by Infogrames, which I guess has some relationship with Atari, whether they were consumed by Atari or whatever. But fun fact here, Guinness Book of World Records in 2008 named it the first ever survival horror game, dating back to 1992. So that's pretty interesting stuff.
That is really interesting. I seriously cannot believe I've never heard of this game.
It's like an important series. I mean, it's like an important game historically, evidently. And they're on the 5th game out here in 2000. When was this canceled? We didn't write that down.
We did not.
2002 is when it was in development.
Jesus.
So I don't know.
All right. So you said it's the 5th chapter in this series. So when we were looking this up, I was like, okay, Alone in the Dark 5 must be the 5th installment, right? Well, it's not. Installment does not necessarily coincide with the number of the actual thing, so that led to a lot of confusion. But anyway, it was...
That sounds like it could be a whole podcast.
It could be. I mean, gosh, the stuff that we researched, I was like, I'm confused. Let's keep going back and back and back and back and back. And I guess we have a clear enough image to talk about it. But the game was in development by Atari and Infogrames Lionhouse Studio in 2002. Planned to be released on PS2 and Xbox. 1 year after the 4th installment of the series, which is the one that you mentioned, Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare, which is being developed by Darkworks, and 6 years before Alone in the Dark Reboot in 2008, which was developed by Eden Games. So these games are all being developed by all sorts of people, all sorts of development companies. Alone in the Dark 5 was in development directly by Infogrames, and it was one of their major internal projects at the time. And then, of course, unfortunately, there's always a sad story. Infogrames had some economic problems, and they had lost that year $67 million. That's a lot of money. And officially, the game was actually never announced. It was always just kind of like, yeah, there's going to be a next one of the series. There was not. And people believe it was canceled because of quality issues or because the series in the classic horror genre was not as popular as it once was. And it was seen as more of a risk to complete. They were just going to lose money on it, so they might as well just stop it right there. And so you mentioned this earlier, but in 2003, Infogrames was renamed to Atari after acquiring their name from Hasbro, the toy company, and reorganized the company, which led to many other games like Urban X Tribe, Ghostbusters Academy, Ryder, and NetLife to all be canned. Sucks that a Ghostbusters. I feel like that would have done well.
You know, I don't. Not in the 2003.
Really?
I mean, when the movies came out in like the 80s, right?
Yeah, I guess. I always thought the Ghostbusters was like a classic that everyone. Yeah,
Definitely
you know what? Okay,
classic.
I can see that. Okay, so there are a few screenshots of the game. There are 2 screenshots of what I think is the main character. It doesn't say. One where he's looking at the camera and one where he's pointing a gun somewhere in the distance. He's on some kind of dock in a lake in the middle of a forest. There's another shot of that same forest, and then of one. That's the picture that I showed you. Some creepy, like really terrifying looking monster. I don't even know what it looks like. It's got like really long, lanky arms, really long fingers, and it kind of's got like a hunchback. I don't even know how to describe it.
This is like almost skin and bone in the torso area.
I can't tell if it's scarier because the graphics aren't, super realistic, or if it would be scarier if the graphics were super realistic. I don't know. Hopefully you can put like a picture up, but oh my god, it's terrifying.
All right, next one. I'm noticing a lot of Konami today. Konami published... They were going to publish Silent Hill Cold Heart for the Nintendo Wii, developed by Climax. This game, I'm just going to let you take it away, Hannah. Talk to us about Silent Hill Cold Heart.
I'll take it away. So in 2014, a pitch document, the 7-page instruction booklet was leaked online, which you're going to read from later. The only reason the documents are available was because Konami held a contest and gave away 8 copies of these documents to fans. And it actually came like... It's like an instruction manual, and it's like in a case itself. It's got like the cover art and everything. It's like exactly as you think it would be when it would be released. This pitch was never picked up in full. The pitch also contained an in-depth description of a level within the game called The Lake, which might mean that the level could exist somewhere, or maybe it was just the idea that they wanted it to be. So there could be a build out there. It could be a demo somewhere just floating around. Some of the features and borrowed aspects of the game could have been used in Silent Hill Shattered Memories, which also released on the Wii, PlayStation 2, and PSP.
So yeah, luckily we have someone preserving this manual. Apparently there are like 8 in existence, and someone uploaded some very, very high-res images, and I'm going to read the story introduction for you guys. So Jessica Chambers is an athletic college student whose emotional vulnerability is spilling to the surface. Her posture is defensive. Her full lips are tinged from blue. Her full lips are tinged blue from the cold, and her sad eyes are glossy and strained. Perhaps she has been crying recently. There's a coolness too, an icy resolve beneath the surface. Rewind to a week ago. Jessica has become dependent on her psychiatrist. She's becoming removed and emotionally distant, plagued by awful nightmares. Every night she awakes terrified, her body weighed down by a great sadness. A sense of unease and despair is slowly eating away at Jessica from somewhere deep inside. ... Deciding she needs a break, Jessica skips town, planning to drive across state to visit her parents and clear her head. When freak weather whips up from out of nowhere, she finds herself caught in a ferocious snowstorm. Seeking shelter.
That's something I usually do.
Seeking shelter, she tails a rescue ambulance through the blizzard, following it when it turns off the interstate. She finds herself in a faded resort town. A snow-covered sign announces it as Silent Hill.
Dun,
A
dun,
stranded Jessica explores, hoping to find somewhere to stay the night. It soon dawns on her that something is very wrong here. She sees people and things she thought only existed in her head. The town has become a deadly nightmare fueled by her darkest secrets. A frozen maze full of characters and monsters whose icy hearts know only cruelty and violence.
Oh, man.
Let's see if there's anything else in here worth mentioning. So you said it was a contest to get these 8 given away?
Yeah.
These 8 manuals?
Yep.
That is so freaking cool. Or is it just digital? Or did they actually send out the manuals?
No, I believe they actually sent out the manuals. I mean, the guy took a picture of it. And
right, yeah, these are pictures of it. Okay. That is so freaking cool, honestly.
I mean, it had the cover art and everything.
What do you probably don't know, but was it after the game had already been canceled?
No, it was definitely, I think, in promotion of.
Oh, wow.
But don't quote me on that.
That's such a weird thing to do.
That is weird. It's very weird. But I mean, it's
kind of like
professionally done, obviously.
Oh, for sure. It looks like it's ready to go to print. It already has gone to print, actually.
Yeah. 7 copies.
All right, so why wasn't this one released?
All right, so the working theory for why it was never released is that the developers overestimated the Wii's console power and realized that many of the concepts and mechanics that they had proposed would not run well on the Wii. So they overestimated. In other words, the Wii wasn't strong enough to do what they wanted it to do, which would explain why many of the elements from the pitch never made it to Silent Hill Shattered Memories, which also came into the Wii a few years later. And that game is actually considered to be pretty watered down and mediocre. So they went from something that could have been so great to something not so great. Yeah, this is a game I will never pick up. Silent Hill scarred me when I was young. My parents and my brother and I, we watched it one night. And we actually watched it like 2 nights in a row because I couldn't get through it. And they made me sit through it. And there's like... You've never seen it, have you?
No.
Well, oh God, it's terrifying. So obviously... If you've played through the first game, I think it follows loosely what that game is about. Or the movie follows loosely what the game is about. And there's this one scene where there's these, like... They're like statue people, but they don't move when the lights are on. And they're like headless. Or maybe they're not headless. But then they... When the light turns on, they like start... when the light turns off, they like start crawling. And they make these like funny, freaky noises. And that scared the crap out of me. It still does. I tried to find that scene on the internet, but I couldn't muster up the courage to watch it again. But it's
I want to
horrifying.
watch that movie.
Oh, well, you can.
That sounds great.
You can have it. It's terrifying. Hate that movie.
Yeah, we've both never played Silent Hill. Definitely a gaming sin of ours, but maybe not so much for you because you're horrified.
Not so much for me. I will die never playing it.
Yeah, so we had thought about adding Silent Hills to this list, but I decided to keep it to just one Silent Hill. But yeah, we definitely could have. I see why you're laughing. We could have talked about PT and all of the nonsense behind that, but I think that's probably one of the most famous canceled games and one that you guys already know a whole lot about.
Mm-hmm.
But this next one is pretty cool. I was excited to talk about this one. It's Dino Crisis. There was a canceled Game Boy Color game based off of the 1999 Capcom survival horror game for the PS1. I'm excited to talk about it because I think Dino Crisis is pretty neat. Have you ever heard of this game before today?
No, I have not.
Dino Crisis is basically Resident Evil with dinosaurs. That's how they describe it every time I hear people talk about it. I haven't played it, but I really want to. I'm pretty sure it's kind of pricey, I think, and so I've not had the chance to play it myself. But I think that these games look awesome. I don't know how like dinosaurs could be scary. Maybe like jump scares. I could see that being a thing. But
You've never gone to Disney World, so you wouldn't know. There's a Jurassic Park ride, or it's not at Disney World. It's at Universal. But yeah, there's a dinosaur that jumps out at you. Dinosaurs are terrifying.
Well, I've seen Jurassic Park, and I did not find it scary.
No, it's a ride, and at the very end, you've been on a roller coaster, right?
Yeah.
You know how it takes your picture?
Yeah.
Well, at the very end, there's a giant, like, T-Rex that jumps out at you, and it takes your picture, and everyone's screaming. That's terrifying.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. So, the first game, for the sake of history, was released on PS1 and Dreamcast. The second one was exclusive to PS1. And then out in left field, the third game came out as an Xbox exclusive, which is interesting. I've heard that is a terrible game. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of pricey just because it's a Dino Crisis game, but I don't think that anyone enjoys it from what I've heard. So the Game Boy Color release was going to be developed by a British studio called M4 Ltd, and they had just recently released the Looney Tunes game called Tasmanian Devil Munching Madness, also on the Game Boy Color. this Game Boy Color version, not a port, but a version of oh my gosh, Dino Crisis would have been a top-down game. IGN spoke to M4 and they said that it would have released late 2000. They were planning to release it in quarter 4 of 2000, so towards the end of the year. M4 did go on to create Resident Evil Gaiden on Game Boy Color, which was a top-down Resident Evil game that released in 2001. And it is said that the unreleased Dino Crisis ended up being the base for Resident Evil Gaiden. So that's interesting. We got a quote here I'm going to let you read.
Thank you very much. Yes, we have a quote from a developer. As I recall, we produced a very impressive demo for the Game Boy Color version of Dino Crisis. Resident Evil was already in development as an over-ambitious port from the PlayStation version. This was scrapped and Capcom asked us to do a bespoke game with our Dino Crisis engine. Capcom requested Virgin for a Dino Crisis demo. Virgin asked us to create it. It used the exploration mode and similar battle system as Gaiden would use. It was playable. The dino sprites in exploration mode were large. I had entire backups of everything from N4, absolutely everything, but I'm in Brazil and the backups are in the UK. So interestingly enough,
I thought it was strange that he said that last part, like he can't just fly over to the UK and get him, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. That is odd. Why is he in Brazil? I don't know. Anyway, interestingly enough, there was another canceled version of this game that seems to have existed, being developed by British developer Fluid Studios, who released Top Gun Firestorm for the Game Boy and Army Men Air Combat for Game Boy and Nintendo 64.
So, simultaneously, it seems like there was another version of Dino Crisis coming out for the Game Boy Color, or not coming out, but being developed, and this one was a port. So I was specific, like, not talking about a port earlier. It was like a different version of the game, but this one was a literal scaled down version of the PS1 release, which is very strange. I can't imagine that, but it would have featured 7 maps with 100 total rooms, 4 returning characters from the PS1 game: Rick, Regina, Dr. Kirk, and Gale. A brief story was written about the games. Essentially, Regina, an undercover agent, infiltrates the compound and tries to capture Dr. Kirk and take him to her government agency. Now, when I read this and I saw infiltrates the compound, I was like, what compound? I don't freaking know, but maybe the Dino Crisis fans in the room will have an idea of what compound that is.
The compound.
If you're interested, there are definitely pictures out there from this canceled release of the game. They're pretty neat to see. Yeah, I always love that two-dimensional Game Boy Color pixel art, but the 3D stuff is pretty rough. Like, this game would have looked rough, I'm sure. And yeah, last thing, a Game Boy Color, a scaled-down port of Resident Evil was coming out before Resident Evil Gaiden came out, but that one was canceled as well, so, like he said in that quote that Hannah read. So it's possible that the idea of scaling down these PS1 games for the GBC hardware was just too ambitious. Totally believable.
Yep. I mean, it either too ambitious or it just would look like crap. And they're like, we're not doing that.
Maybe a little of both.
Maybe a little bit of both. Okay, so the next game we have on the list is Obscure D, which was going to be for the 3DS, PS3, Xbox 360, and PC. It's a side-scrolling survival horror game similar to Blood Rain Betrayal, which is another side-scrolling platform hack-and-slash game. It has a really, really unique art style. It's like animated. Kind of looks like anime, but not like quite there. And the movements look like really smooth and really nice. I was watching some gameplay of it and was like, wow, this is a really interesting game. The character designs are really awesome, I thought. And there's a point, like, you know, in a hack and slash, the enemies just kind of like keep coming. Well, I was watching it and they actually come from like the foreground from where you are to like the background, like you, the audience, is to the background where your character is. And it's cool because they get like big and then they like jump in front of you. It's kind of cool.
That is cool.
And yeah, so the Obscure D was supposed to have returning characters from other obscure entries in the series, such as Lydia Thompson, Carlos Petrovita, Molly Hamsterview, Jacob Small, Claire Richards, Jason McCreary, Ashley Thompson, and Josh Carter, which I'm sure if you're familiar with the Obscure series, you would know these people. I don't. These are just names to me.
So for those of you that aren't familiar with the Obscure series, we'll go over a little history here. The first game released in 2004, and it was developed by Hydravision, and it is on the PS2, Xbox, and Windows. Supports 2 players and allows players to choose their own character and choose who dies, which is pretty interesting. What's interesting to me is it's one of those infamous freaking famous wait a minute. I can't say infamous and famous. What am I saying?
Infamously
it's
famous.
One of those it's one of those PS2 games that is just one of those survival horror PS2 games that everybody wants. There's so many survival horror PS2 games that are through the roof right now, and this one is no different. It's $200 on PS2. It's also $100 or more on Xbox. And then after that, we had Obscure 2, The Aftermath, which came out on PS2, Wii, Windows, and PSP. This game also allows for 2 players.
Very nice. So yeah, I watched clips of the walkthrough of both of these games, and it's just, like we've been saying, it's just your average horror game. The screen is mostly dark. The only, light that you can see, or the only way you can see is, the flickering of a broken light or a flashlight. And the atmosphere is creepy, and there's creepy writings on the wall, and yeah, it's just the usual. I don't know why it's $200.
So this one here is going to be totally different. It was going to be a 2D side-scroller, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. And it's interesting that it's they're changing it up, and it's still on consoles, PS3 and 360. Usually you see something like that, and it's it makes sense they're bringing it to the 3DS or something.
Yep.
But this canceled game was also in development by Hydravision, and it was going to be published as a digital download by PlayLogic for the 360, PS3, 3DS, and PC. The game was to launch in the fall of 2012, and timeline the game was to take place before Obscure 2.
Yep. So this title, Obscure D, it started as a budget title for the PSP and Nintendo DS under a different name called Obscure Dark Aura. However, this idea was also scrapped and the concept evolved into Obscure D. But again, this game never saw the light of day, and the developers actually closed down before the project was finished. Screenshots of Obscure D do exist, and it looks like the game was going to have a more cartoony style compared to other games in the series. The screenshots of the game are not super good quality. Nearly all the characters in the background is blurry, and it's kind of hard to see what's really going on in the picture. The game was to be rated T for teen, had 4-player online co-op for PS3, Xbox 360, and PC version, and the 3DS version was not going to have co-op, but it was going to have an exclusive act, which is more story. And then an update to that, Obscure D has been resurrected as Obscure 2013 and has had about half of the game redeveloped from scratch. And then an update to that update is Obscure 2013 was renamed to Obscure Final Exam and is also known as just Final Exam. In the game, Final Exam had negative feedback about it being called an obscure game. That's kind of why it was renamed Final Exam, and it's classified as a spin-off, and it's not canonical. And this game is platforming, hack and slash horror game, and it's from Mighty Rocket Studios. So yeah, it was a lot of canceled and resurrected and then canceled and then resurrected and then but ultimately canceled.
Hydravision and all of its properties were purchased by Focus Home Interactive, and then Focus renamed Hydravision to Mighty Rocket Studios. So Final Exam was released on PS3, 360, and Windows. It came out digitally for all of them, but the only physical release was actually for PC, which is very backwards from what we're used to these days.
Mm-hmm.
And on to our final game, definitely the most exciting one here, just because of the recent release that we've already talked about, It's Metroid Dread. What the heck are we talking about, Hannah? This game is not canceled because it just released. So how could it be on this podcast?
Well, it was canceled for a very, very long time, but I guess, I don't know. Nintendo liked some aspects of the game. I don't really know, to be honest. I don't really know the exact reason why it came back, to be completely honest. But
so after this game got announced, there was a ton of people just like a lot of people had like this memory unlocked, and I didn't. I mean, I was young when the DS was out, but the internet went nuts. They were like, "Oh my gosh, Metroid Dread, that's the game they got canceled on the DS," or like, "We thought that this game became it." And yeah, so we're going to talk about all that. I've been interested, but I haven't actually sat down and looked up what the heck happened. And Hannah has done most of the research for this one, and I'm excited for her to talk to us about it. But what I can tell you is Metroid Dread was supposed to be a follow-up to Metroid Fusion, and it was planned for release on the Nintendo DS. Game Informer reported that the new Metroid game was in development in 2005, but E3 2005 came and went, and there was no word on the game. And then, the following year, there was a Metroid game released, and it was called Metroid Prime Hunters instead of Dread. I think that was a poor choice. I spent at least 20 minutes playing that game, and it was trash because of the controls. But please, carry on, Hannah.
I was about to say, imagine how disappointed they were. Especially now. Like, this is the game we could have had, and we got freaking Hunters. Anyway, so fans speculated that Dread was just the project name for Hunters until fans discovered an in-game message from the Wii's 2007 Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, which read, "Experiment status report update. Metroid Project Dread is nearing the final stage of completion," which made fans...
That is so cool.
Isn't it cool? Which made fans
that
suspicious that there was actually a title out there called Metroid Dread, and I guess... they're right. I mean, I guess that was always the intent, right? Why would they put that in there just to tease us?
14 years later, yeah.
But then when asked about it, the director of Metroid Prime 3 Corruption said that there were no other Metroid games in development. So theories as to why they canceled, but of course none of this is just speculation, none of this is actual fact. Some think the reason is because 2D games were kind of on their way out. They were losing popularity to their 3D counterparts. Which is
I 100% think that that's a possibility.
Totally possible,
era.
Especially with I mean, even Metroid made the jump to 3D, so everyone knew that 3D was in, 2D was out. Some think the idea was too ambitious, and the Nintendo DS couldn't, or it wasn't powerful enough to handle that kind of game, and the development team wanted to. I don't know. I heard that the development team wanted to wait until the technology was actually powerful enough. What do you think about that?
For a 2D Metroid title?
Yeah.
I don't know about that one. That doesn't sound right.
See, I heard that one. That's why I didn't write it, but that's something that someone else had said. So the reason why it came out now is some things in gaming have changed over the past few years. So games, super popular games, indie games like Celeste, Dead Cells, Cuphead, and Shovel Knight are all super, super popular, super really high-rated 2D games. And so it's possible that Nintendo was kind of testing the waters with the release of Metroid Samus Returns for the 3DS, which is a remake of Metroid 2, and I guess it did pretty well, so okay, let's dig into our freaking archives and come up with another 2D Metroid game. So yeah, that's speculating why it did come out.
I think that this game ended up being absolutely amazing. Did it take them 14 years to complete it? Absolutely not. But they did wait for the right time. And they did test the waters with Metroid Samus Returns for the 3DS. That was, I don't know. I don't know how well that game sold, but it was also towards the end of the 3DS, so it was kind of unfair. But the same team, what's the name of the company that made this game?
Nintendo.
It has slipped my mind.
Yeah,
They
I
are
can't
freaking
remember
awesome,
either.
though. But they made Metroid Samus Returns as well as Dread, and they killed it. I think that it's freaking awesome that this game is like supposedly completing the 5 2D Metroid games. It's topping it off on an awesome note. Talked about it at the beginning already, but love this game. You're gonna have an awesome time with it. I think even having played no Metroid games, they start you off with a nice little backstory of what's been happening. They talk about Fusion a little bit, and it's super, super cool. They do a great job of including the newcomers into the series. So,
well, that's good. I was
Metroid
kind of intimidating.
Dread. Yeah, whoever hasn't played this game or picked it up, you should definitely do so. Don't be intimidated. But perfect game for Halloween, because let me tell you, those Emmys are something else.
Just in the trailer, they look terrifying. The suspenseful music.
I think,
oh, man.
I just feel like Dread is such a cool name. Like, that's not a word that is used in video game titles, and that's just such a cool name.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, there's no enemy or boss called Dread. They just, I don't know, they just chose a good adjective.
It is a good adjective. It just strikes dread in everyone.
Know. That's it, though, guys. That's 10 games that were canceled that we can loosely tie to the Halloween spirit. I hope that y'all had a great time. Yeah, that's true. I think all of these were tightly wound to the October season. How'd you feel about this episode, Hannah?
I really enjoyed it. I like the we learned so much. We did so much research, or at least I did. And I learned so much about just the gaming industry and how like there's so many different games that are canceled for whatever reason, and they just up and disappear.
Big shout out to Lost Media Wiki and Unseen64.net, Unseen64.net, because they have some pretty awesome websites that you can just get lost in any time of the day. If you're like waiting for a bus or something, like this is such a cool website to just check out in your spare time. Both of these are. But yeah, definitely the reason we did this episode, we wanted to do a canceled games episode, not necessarily for the Halloween season, but we would still like to do some more. So let us know how you feel about these episodes. We love learning about the history of video games and the industry and everything, and we would love to hear if you guys loved or hated this episode.
Agreed. Definitely let us know. Or maybe if you know of a game that's canceled that you'd like us to talk about, also drop that below.
Sure. Which one of these games do y'all wish came to be? Hannah, let me ask you, which one of these games, I think I know your answer, which one do you wish had come to be?
I mentioned it before, but I think my favorite would be Colt County. It's so intriguing to me. And we actually saw parts of the gameplay, and then just nothing came of it. So I would definitely like that one. Plus, the other ones look way too scary. So no thanks. What about you?
Surprisingly, I think the one I would pick is either one of the Ghosts and Goblins games. I think that might have turned out pretty cool. Can't say I'm a fan of obscure, Alone in the Dark, Silent Hill, like even Dino Crisis. That would probably have been awful on Game Boy Color. Let's be real.
You're right. You're definitely right.
Big reminder here. Not a reminder because we haven't brought it up yet. But next month, on November 19th, we'll be celebrating the 2-year anniversary of the Unlockable Podcast.
2 years! That's so awesome.
I wish I had some kind of a button to hit for a round of applause right there.
Oh, that would be nice.
But yeah. It'll be episode 22 next month, which means we've only missed 2 months out of 2 years of our monthly podcast. So good for us.
But so far this year, we've done every month.
Yeah, we have not made any mistakes the last 12 months. Go us.
Go us. Go team. High five.
All right, cool. Happy Halloween, everybody. Thank you for listening, and we will see you in episode 22 of the Unlockable Podcast.
See ya.